Please welcome Nick Harris from Highways England to the virtual stage, where I'll be finding out his views on the role of the road sector in a post-pandemic, post-Brexit world. Before sitting down with Nick, we have a short video for you to watch to help set the scene.
At Highways England, we're here to make sure our strategic road network works better than ever. Our roads carry over a third of all traffic and 2/3 of all freight, moving people and goods more than 95 billion miles a year. We're delivering the government's £27 billion investment by 2025. We're embarking on our biggest ever renewal programme and investing £14.2 billion on new road schemes, saving our customers over 20 million hours, creating better access to railways, ports and airports, unlocking sites for house building and freeing up local roads from traffic, resulting in benefits of £27 billion to England's communities, businesses, road users and economy. We'll be working with our partners to improve skills and provide opportunities through our apprenticeships, graduate schemes and returner schemes, and creating £2.2 billion in efficiencies, ensuring even better value for taxpayers. Ours are some of the world's safest roads, and we're embracing new technology to make them even safer, which will halve serious casualties by 2025. We're investing over £900 million to fund activities beyond traditional road investment. These will help us improve lives, support the economy, increase accessibility and protect the environment, supporting the government's aim to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Around our network, we will help provide facilities for the country's freight, bus and coach drivers. We'll provide safer routes for cyclists, walkers and horse riders. We will minimise our impact on the environment, reducing pollution, preventing flooding and protecting wildlife, including 90 hectares of species-rich habitat along the M6. Our people and supply chain will be managing, maintaining and monitoring our network 24/7, 365 days a year. From across the Pennines to beneath the Thames, our improvements will ease congestion while protecting our landscape and heritage at the same time. We're already looking ahead, starting on the technological advances that will revolutionise road transportation, creating one of the largest fibre networks in England to transform connectivity. Relied on by business and communities, uniting families and friends, we're making our digital roads vision for safer, smoother journeys a reality. Our strategic road network, connecting the country every single day, now and in the future.
Welcome to our Future of Roads event, Nick. It's great to have you with us. Over the last few weeks, some of NCE's readers have been submitting questions for you, but before we come on to some of those, I have a few of my own that I want to put to you, just to set the scene in the way about your role and how you see the future of Highways England changing and evolving. So first, you formally stepped into the role of acting CEO of Highways England in February after 5 years with the organisation. What do you see as the main changes Highways England has delivered over its predecessor in the form of the Highways Agency in that time?
Yes, no, and hi there, Claire. It's been interesting coming into this role in February and reflecting on the last 5 years that I've spent with the company. There are a number of areas that we've achieved. I think a good advancement in the way that we run the strategic road network. I mean, the ones that I guess are in the top of my mind are improvements in safety. So if we go back to the beginning of road period 1 and you compare the safety performance of the company, so how safe all of our employees are, they're about 10 times safer now than they were at the beginning of road period 1. And that's on the back of a lot of work on behavioural safety, the approach to work, training, and more things besides. So that was, I was really pleased to see that improvement. The other big area is, of course, a change in the way that we manage the strategic roads program, because now we have 5-year settlements, 5-year chunks of program. We're able to give much greater continuity and to manage the investments that we're looking after at a program level, so we can cope with the normal movements that you see in individual projects as they're developed and then go into construction. We're able to manage those shifts, but overall deliver a successful program in each 5-year period. So I think in road period one we demonstrated our capability at delivering, and as we've now moved into the second road period, we're building on that. I'm focusing much more now on challenges such as the environment, biodiversity, and of course digital in the future of mobility.
So your focus on and the environment brings us on quite well to the next question. So, given the government's carbon net zero promise by 2050, do you think we'll see radically different plans for England's roads network under development for the road investment strategy period from 2025 for the third one?
I mean, the environment, I mean, there's no doubt it has moved in the last few years from being something that is incredibly important to something that is now almost existential for the future of road building. Of course, if we think about the environment, in particular carbon emissions, there are three components to that. One is the tailpipe carbon, which is the largest component, of course. We do have the embedded or construction carbon and our corporate carbon, and we're focused on all three. Now, the tailpipe carbon, as the largest component, more than 80% of the carbon emissions associated with road transport, will change over time with the government's decision to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles after 2030. Over time, the vehicle fleet is going to change, and carbon emissions are going to change. So we will need roads both now and into the future. Traffic volumes are still predicted to increase by between a third and 2/3 over the coming years. So our challenge is, how do we build those roads and how do we maintain them in a carbon neutral way? So our focus now is, do the schemes need to change? Do we need to build them in different ways? Do we need to use different materials or materials in different ways? And of course, we're looking for huge innovation with our partners in the supply chain to achieve those outcomes.
So there's certainly some big challenges ahead for the third road investment strategy period then. So do you think that future road investment plans need to become less siloed and focus more on multimodal forms of transport rather than just road traffic? As an example, Expedition Engineering's Alistair Lesner has suggested that Lower Thames Crossing should include rail lines as well as road. Do you agree with that approach? And what are the challenges in moving forward with those kind of proposals?
I think that more integration and looking at multimodal transport is incredibly important. I mean, at the end of the day, no one starts their journey on the strategic road network and ends it. So I think our integration within what the wider journeys that people are actually making is incredibly important. We work very closely with the subnational transport bodies in each of the regions on helping them develop their plans, them influencing our plans. But I think there's a few things that we should bear in mind. We carry at least 10 times as much freight on the strategic road network compared with rail. So yes, I think modal shift is definitely part of the future, but it isn't the whole solution, and we're still going to need motorways, A roads to connect the country and to support the economy. So yes, some shift and better integration. Looking at the LTC, I know we're talking about how we can facilitate help bus routes. I mean, the Lower Thames Crossing is a twin 3-lane tunnel. Tricky to find more space to fit rail lines in there, I think.
Don't fancy doing a bigger bore through that. It's already quite a large tunnel, isn't
It's
it?
already pretty big as it is.
Yeah. So coming back to RIS2 and considering the environment, there's been a lot of challenges, even legal challenges, to the road building plans laid out in the strategy, specifically Stonehenge Tunnel and Lower Thames Crossing. Do you think some of these challenges could have been addressed at an earlier stage with improved consultation processes?
So there are a number of elements, I think, to that. There's no doubt that the environment around us has changed. Everyone's more focused, quite rightly so, on the impact of everything we do on the environment, both in terms of carbon and biodiversity. And in the case of Stonehenge, the issue there is heritage rather than the environment or carbon. So we are seeing more challenge. So looking at the way in which we gain planning permission for projects, the DCO process, we're certainly giving a lot more focus to the consultations rather that we run through those processes, environmental impact assessments to make sure that we're doing everything we can to take into account the thoughts and views of all stakeholders and the future users or drivers. So I'm ensuring that the organisation that I'm now leading is one that continues to listen and to engage and consult with everyone. But I do think that if we do that well, we will still see challenge because that is how the environment that has changed around us. That is part of the process, and our plans being scrutinised is important. We just have to build that into the work that we're doing, I think.
I guess part of that challenge is important to prove that you are doing the right thing. But I have heard quite a lot of communities saying that the consultation process at the moment currently feels a bit like a tick box exercise and don't really feel listened to. How do you think the processes could be improved so communities feel like that you're working with them rather than having a project done to them?
It's always a good challenge. I mean, it absolutely isn't a tick box process. The development of our projects, and I think there is a challenge that is inherent in our projects in that we're doing something on a national scale. So typically we'll be doing an improvement to the network that has economic benefit at a national level. Of course, the people who are being impacted, the communities that are being impacted, are much more focused on the local issues, and we need to make sure that we are covering what it means for local communities as well as the wider economic or social benefits of what we're building. I'm sure there is always more that we can do to address that. And in this road period, as we had in road period one, we have funding called designated funds. So these are funds that the government has given us to address many of these challenges. So in this road period, we have over £900 million to spend on the environment, on communities, on innovation, as well as a number of other elements. And this is money that we can use to do local improvements for communities, anything from new village halls or playing fields or cycle schemes, improvements to access for walkers, horse riding, archaeology, often important in many of our schemes. So we aim to use this funding in consultation with the communities and other interested parties like the National Trust, Natural England, and so on, to benefit either the heritage or active access or biodiversity. And I'd say that through RIS1 we've been successful in using money for these things, and we'll continue to aim to do this during this road period.
It's good to hear that it is benefiting people at a local level. But do you think that Highways England and other road operators in the UK do enough to communicate the strategic nature of road improvements to support messaging around projects like Stonehenge Tunnel and Lower Thames Crossing? Or do we focus too much on the technical side and the local impact of these projects rather than the actual national need for them?
It's a great question. I'm myself a civil engineer, and we do tend to get excited by the what and the technical details. And of course, that doesn't really matter often to the communities that are affected by the projects that we're building, the schemes that we're building. And it's important to think about how we are communicating and what we're communicating about. People care much more about what's the impact on my community, how am I going to get from here to there, is it going to change or affect my life? And we do a lot of good engagement and communication around all schemes as well as generally. And we do work in partnership with many of the organisations that I mentioned before, like National Trust, Natural England, etc., to ensure that we are communicating about the things that matter, and we are addressing the things that are important to the communities that we're working with. And it's been interesting, I think, hasn't it, in the last 18 months with the pandemic. A lot of having large public meetings or communicating in that way has not been impossible, and I think we've driven quite successfully a lot of innovation in the way that we communicate online. And in some cases, I'm sure we've reached a much wider range of people that are interested in what we're doing, and been able to gain more feedback that way.
That's good. So coming back to the safety thing that you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, another hot topic in our news pages this year has been smart motorways. What do you hope the outcome of the Transport Select Committee inquiry into them will be, and have you got plans in place to respond quickly to the findings?
Yeah, the concerns that have been raised around smart motorways or all lane running. I absolutely understand where drivers and of course the Transport Select Committee are coming from. It's not enough that drivers are safe. They need to feel safe as well. And Highways England, we welcomed the review or stock take that took place in 2020 and the 18 action plans that came out of that. And we're working our way through at pace to get those all delivered, because they will improve the safety. I mean, it's important that we think about the safety of all roads, not just smart motorways. But as I look to appearing at the Transport Select Committee, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to demonstrate that we are listening and we're open to new information and new ways of looking at safety, and that I will be able to share a lot of the evidence that we have about how they operate and their safety. And in particular, a lot of the work we're doing on communications. I mean, you may have seen the Go Left campaign that we've been running recently, which of course is aimed not just at smart motorways, but at all roads. And it was about giving some key safety messages: get left, get to a place of safety, and call for help. That I hope has been useful to all drivers. We need to carry on communicating. We see that there's been improvements in understanding, but there's always more that we can do. But I do repeat that smart motorways are safe. They are as safe or safer than the roads they replaced, and the roads that we operate in this country are some of the safest in the world.
So that brings me on quite well to our first submitted question, which is coming from Jack Cousins, who's head of roads policy with the AA. He says the statistics as part of the Stocktake 1 year on document show that both controlled motorways and dynamic hard shoulder motorways are statistically safer than traditional and all-lane running motorways. He asks, is Highways England still planning to phase out these smart motorway designs in favour of all-lane running?
So, I mean, I think to answer that, it's important to sort of step back and look at the bigger picture. And one statistic that I think is important to have in mind is that compared with all types of smart motorway, so managed motorway, dynamic hard shoulder, or all lane running. Conventional motorways, there are a third more fatalities adjusted for the number of vehicles. So the three types of smart motorway are safer from that point of view. There are differences between the three. But they are relatively small differences. But I think, going back to, well, what's the big picture? We must think about what is the problem that we are trying to solve, and that is two things: capacity. I mean, the number of journeys taken on the strategic road network has increased by something like 23% since 2000. And is forecast to increase by between another third and 2/3 over the coming 2 decades. And so we need that capacity. There was also the issue of congestion, so stop-start traffic. And congestion in itself is not safe. It tends to lead to, yes, more low-speed incidents, but it leads to more casualties. So we had to solve those. And you've got there are three options: do nothing and live with the situation getting worse. Widen the road and you could create a controlled motorway with 4 lanes and a hard shoulder plus the technology, or work within the space we have. Now, the issue we have to balance is, of course, the environment, impact on communities, as well as cost. Widening what are some of the busiest stretches of motorway, often near urban areas, is sometimes just not possible because the impact it would have on the communities alongside the road, the impact on the environment. And so all lane running was developed as a good solution to be able to provide the capacity within the space that we have as safe or safer than the roads they were replacing. If we had built all of the smart motorways that we're now building by widening the roads, we would have had to demolish around another 2,000 homes and businesses, displacing all of those. So they provide many advantages.
I suppose it's all about understanding the risk. Jack has also asked when we can expect to see publication of the 2018 report into stationary vehicle detection. And he's asking why there's been a delay in publishing the post-opening project evaluation reports for the M1.
So taking the stop vehicle detection report, so we issued a report in 2016, and then we produced another report in 2018, which was circulated. It was circulated externally. Some of it was redacted. There was some commercially sensitive information in it to do with our principal supplier, and that was redacted. But that information was shared externally. And the POPE reports, so the post-evaluation reports, which we produce after about 1 year and then after about 5 years of operation of a new scheme, we issue them as and when they're ready. There are a number that are in preparation at the moment, and I expect them to be published shortly.
So we expect to see the M1's report soon. That's good. So the next question has come in from James Thompson of Jack Structures, and he's questioning whether Highways England is truly open to innovative solutions or whether designs are tied to tried and tested approaches. He poses a question after proposing a jacked tunnel solution in place of the cuttings on Stonehenge Tunnel, but he says he received no response to the suggestions. So is Highways England too risk averse to be innovative, do you think?
I mean, there is something that is conservative about our nature. I mean, we are dealing with safety critical infrastructure, so it is important that we manage that in a measured and diligent way. But we are open to innovation. In fact, we recently launched our innovation fund to encourage more innovation in the future building and operation of roads. And I can think of quite a number of examples that I've worked personally with. We've worked with a number of organisations on things like automated cone laying, which is looking at how do we remove road workers from the road when we're setting out temporary traffic management. we've worked on some really innovative solutions to road markings. And I think just recently, I was looking at a project where we're working with Manchester University on using graphene in some of our road solutions. So we're very open to innovation, and I certainly would like to see more. And I am aware of the tunneling solutions that were proposed as part of the consultation we did um, there, and I think we've been back to the gentleman in question.
That's good to hear. So the last question I've got comes in from the Ranty Highwayman on Twitter, and it's around active travel provision on Highways England's network. It says the default design seems to be shared use paths rather than separating walking and cycling facilities, which he says often creates narrow paths that do not have decent buffers between active travel users and vehicles. Could and should Highways England provide better design guidance to ensure routes provide the best solution for all users?
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about designated funds, providing safe routes for all customers or communities around our schemes is something that's very important to us. The solution does depend on each location and each scheme. But I think the good news is that last year we did launch the new a new design manual for roads and bridges, which where we've digitized all of our design standards, and that's included improvements for the way that we do design active travel. So yeah, we'll continue to support the development of that, but of course it does depend on each individual scheme.
Okay, so it's all about pushing back into the local region to hopefully get changes that actually benefit everybody. So I think that's just about all we've got time for today. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. I think we could talk all day on this one, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much.